A few weeks ago, when we last had time on our hands in between racing, I got thinking about a couple of things. One was about how America's Cup boats turn. The other was about the sea breeze. So I went off to somewhere special to think about it some more. Now, after the semi-finals of the Brada Cup, we had a bit of time on our hands. And, well, I didn't think it was a good idea to waste it. So I thought I'd come and just think a little bit about foils and flight. And so I went along to go and see the very nice people at Auckland Gliding Club, who very kindly lent me their Discus 2. It's a single-seater, 15-metre wingspan glider. Very nice it is too. It's fully tricked up, it's got all the toys in it. And even more kindly, they said, whilst I was flying, because the cockpit's quite small, they'd look after my wallet just in case I lost it, which I think is very decent of them. Anyway, it's a glorious day up here. Lovely thermic conditions, quite bouncy as you can see at the moment, but what a view. I can see all the way over to Rangitoto and the Hauraki Gulf. Fantastic, it's lovely up there. But it got me thinking a bit about foils and the way that the AC75s are sailed. And obviously there's a lot of similarities between what happens in an AC75 and what happens in one of these and how you handle them. I mean, not least of all, we're travelling at about the same kind of speed. I'm cruising along here at about 60 knots. Okay, it's a bit quicker than they go, but I can slow right down to 50 and slow right down to 40. They're very similar. So the thing I've been thinking about in particular is turning. Now when we're turning at any plane, glider or power plane, we're using the ailerons to bank the plane to turn. In fact, we're using a combination of the rudder and the ailerons to turn the plane. Now if we would just use the rudder on its own, it just yaws the plane. It's a bit like sliding sideways on ice. And we need to put bank on the plane, in this case to the right, with a combination of the rudder to turn. And then when we level the wings up, we go straight. Now the thing about an AC75 is that when they go round the corner, they're trying to keep the boat level, because if they put any heel on, it all goes pear-shaped pretty quickly. So when an AC75 turns, the flight controller is doing everything they possibly can to keep the boat level. So unlike a plane, unlike this glider, they don't want it to bank at all. But the same things happen in reverse. So think of it this way. In the glider, if I move the stick to the left, and I move the rudders as well, but let's just think about the stick and the ailerons, which are on the ends of the wing. If I move the stick to the left, the plane banks to the left, and we turn. And that's because the aileron on the left is going up, and the aileron on the right is pointing down, tipping us that way. Now in the case of an AC75, when they turn to the left, the aileron effectively goes the other way on that side, and the other way on that side, to stop the boat from heeling, to stop it from rolling. But the one thing that makes it a lot harder on an AC75 for the flight controller is that, unlike when I turn this plane and turn to the left, I'm just looking to see. So I'd be doing, say, 60 knots, 65 knots, and the speed will be the same all the way around. So the lift on each one of these wings is constant all the way around. But on an AC75, it's anything but constant, because as it goes through attack, especially attack, it slows down. So the lift that's generated over those foils changes all the way through the tack. So the flight controller's got to allow for that as well in order to keep the boat level. It's quite a balancing act. Now, taking all of that into account and just thinking about just how stable the AC75s now look through the tacks and the jibes, I mean, they've definitely come on leaps and bounds. It does make you wonder what kind of systems they've got under their skin that allow them to get another level of balance, you know. What automated systems have they got to help them keep the boats level? I don't expect any of the teams are going to tell us, certainly not now. We might find out after the cup when tongues loosen a little bit, but for the time being, I guess we are just going to have to guess. But when you put it in the context of a plane and the controls and how it all works there, and how complicated it is to keep a beast like an AC75 on the straight and level, you've got to wonder what's under their skin. One of the other things that I thought I'd just have a quick mention about is sea breeze, because in this America's Cup, sea breeze has already been a big feature of the racing, and as we go further into the summer, it's going to be more so the case that sea breezes may well affect the racing. It's one of the reasons why the starts are relatively late in the afternoon, in order that the sea breeze can develop. But one of the telltale signs of a sea breeze develop, as any good glider pilot will know, is that the sky goes blue. And the reason it goes blue is because the sea breeze pulls in moist air, and that moist air doesn't really form thermals very readily. In fact, it really doesn't, because it's heavier and it just can't get going. And so you end up with a blue area moving inland as the moist air gets dragged in off the sea over the land. And you can see that today really clearly. It's, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sea breeze has really got established now out here. So that's us looking up country, up towards Auckland. If I turn out towards and face the sea, you can see how the cloud disappears. And it's, apart from a few scraps of cumulus that are just here, quite close to us, beyond that, on the horizon, it's blue. And that's the moist air coming in with the sea breeze. The Manukau heads are up there, and as any of the locals will tell you, it can be blowing quite hard at the Manukau heads, and that's and yet still quite quiet around Auckland, but that's the first indication of the sea breeze coming in. But there we go, clear sky. But if we go inland, as we turn around some more, inland to where it's still cooking, hey presto, that's where the cumulus is, that's where the drier air is, that's where the thermals are, and that's where there isn't a sea breeze. And if we come around a bit more, we start to look up towards, I don't know if you can see, but just right on the nose now is Rangitoto. And so Rangitoto, and just slightly to the left of that is a Hauraki Gulf. That is the racing area. So you can see from here, if I just swing the nose a little bit more to the left, look out towards the Manukau heads, that's the Manukau heads that they talk about seeing the sea breeze coming in when they're looking at the weather stations there. And it really doesn't have very far to travel if you look across to Rangitoto and the Hauraki Gulf. It's a fascinating place up there because the race area is surrounded by lots of dots of land, but an awful lot of water. And that's why we have such localized effects on the race course. It's why it's such a complex place to sail. And if you think this is all just a rather weedy excuse to go flying on a day off, I guess you got a point. But I still couldn't help thinking about the boats nonetheless. See you on the ground.